Faster-than-light travel is one of the more common technologies in science fiction. It's just plain cool to fly around the galaxy, visiting a different star every week while your red shirts take bullets for you. Without faster-than-light travel, science fiction would be limited to very long travel times or even a single star system, which would still take travel times of weeks and even years. It's no wonder that writers would want a faster method of getting from A to B in the interest of the story. However, science fiction of the past shapes the technology of the future. Remember the communicators from Star Trek? Now we have cell phones. The dive suits from 40,000 Leagues Under the Sea? Now we've been to the Mariana Trench in vehicles that would have boggled the mind of Jules Verne. How about lightsabers? One of the cooler fictional weapons ever imagined. Some guy on YouTube just made one with plasma. If humans can imagine it, they will try their best to create it. And warp drives are a particularly amazing technology that, if developed, could open every corner of the universe up to our expansion. But can the fundamental laws of the universe be so severely broken? What exactly is this Alcubierre drive? How would it work? And is it even possible? Researchers at NASA think that this could very well be the engine that could take your descendants to infinity and far beyond. In 1994, theoretical physicist Miguel Alcubierre published a paper titled The Warp Drive: Hyperfast Travel Within General Relativity, in which he argued that the bending of space-time would allow a ship enclosed within to travel faster than light. He was originally inspired by the starships in Star Trek and their warp drives, emphasizing the warp part of the drive. It would imply that the Enterprise and other such ships were not firing engines to reach these ludicrous speeds, but instead were warping space to do so. He ran with this idea and came up with a possible solution. I've constructed this example craft in KSP to show how such a ship may operate. Yes, I've managed to cram more of my favorite game into yet another video and I have no regrets. It is currently connected to an orbital dockyard and will be departing shortly for another star. The main feature of most Alcubierre concepts is one or two rings around the ship, which would warp space-time. Alcubierre theorized that while large bodies warp both space and time around them, and a sample of the still theoretical negative mass matter would warp space in the opposite direction, pushing mass away instead of attracting it, it may be possible to create a depression in spacetime using positive mass in front of the ship which would pull it forward, while also creating a wave of bent spacetime behind the ship using this negative mass matter, pushing it along in the forwards depression. The ship could ride space like a wave, a faster-than-light surfer sailing away at incomprehensible speeds. But wouldn't the energy required to propel a ship at light speed be more energy than the entire universe holds? Well, yes, if you're using boring old thrusters. And you wouldn't be able to maintain that speed for very long, as you would be slamming into the tons of interstellar gas and micrometeorites in your path, creating friction and drag on your ship. The Alcubierre drive cheats the universe here, as it technically never accelerates. Think of a flat sheet of rubber that can stretch and warp like spacetime does. This simplified two-dimensional figure shows how space would deform around the ship and create a wave. In truth, it would be more similar to a bubble of space, a protrusion into the rubber sheet of space so deep that it begins to close around itself like a balloon, with one small entrance. The only thing that would be moving faster than light would be the bubble itself, as it traveled along the universe while enclosing the ship. The official term that Alcubierre came up with such a space-warping ship is a metric tensor, as it would tense and stretch the fabric of reality. Inside this bubble, there would be stillness, no engines would be firing, and in theory you could exit the ship and walk along it, as both you and the ship are enclosed in a separate bubble of universe. This bubble would transport the ship as long as it was providing the warping force, and could deactivate these forces to bring the ship to a complete halt, without throwing everything inside it against the windshield at speeds faster than what the universe allows. But why exactly can we not go faster than light? Wouldn't an engine firing for long enough while continually accelerating get us there eventually? Not really, as the energy needed to increase your velocity while traveling quickly increases the faster you go, meaning that it takes more energy to get to 50% of the speed of light from a standstill than it would take to reach 80% of the speed of light at that 50% speed, rising exponentially as you go faster until the amount of energy needed to get from 99.999% the speed of light to 100% would be more energy than exists in the entire universe. This incredible clip from the short movie FTL on YouTube by the channel Dust shows what this warping of space may look like. I would highly recommend checking them out, as they have a ton of sci-fi short movies that are inspiring and beautiful. I will have all related clips and videos linked in the description for easy finding. And this animation shows an Alcubierre ship traveling across Earth as seen from an observer on the moon or in space. You may have heard that certain galaxies are traveling away from us faster than light, and this is true but slightly misleading. After all, we've already established that nothing can be accelerated to speeds that are faster than light conventionally. The galaxies themselves aren't traveling more than a few 100,000 miles per hour away from us, but the space they sit on, and the space in between us and that galaxy, is expanding away from us faster than light, carrying these still quickly traveling but not FTL galaxies away at these speeds. The amount of space between us and that galaxy, which is to us traveling away from us faster than light, is only doing so because the space in between us is expanding faster than light. This is important to know when discussing space-time and how it warps, and the speed of light as well. So the Alcubierre ship doesn't violate the universal speed limit by technically never accelerating within space, but parts of the universe are carrying you to other parts faster than light. But how exactly would we warp space to begin with? Even the negative mass matter I mentioned earlier needed for the other half of the drive is still theoretical. But what is exactly negative mass matter? Scientists also refer to this as exotic matter, and they may have just found a candidate for it in the very fabric of space-time itself. Every moment of every day, the fabric of reality does something strange. Tiny, tiny, tiny particles in all corners of space, inside the screen you're watching this on, to your right and left, and even inside you, are magically popping in and out of existence from seemingly nowhere. These magically appearing particles always form in pairs, a positive particle and a negative one. In the instant they are created, they snap back together, canceling each other's mass and energy out and destroying each other instantly. This creates an effect called the Casimir effect, which can produce tiny areas of the negative pressure we are looking for using these interactions with the negative particles. These particles, if separated from their positive partners, could fit the bill for our warp drive, as they are theorized to have the same properties our negative mass matter would need to have to function. If we were able to collect enough of this matter, we could hypothetically create reverse gravity matter that would push things away from it harder the closer something got, like a warp ship for example. So why hasn't NASA collected a bunch of this matter and made a ship already? Well, there are still some monumental engineering problems in the way for the ship, such as energy. This ship would have to create a bubble in the first place and reinforce it with the negative matter, either by constantly misting it around the ship or holding it in an extremely powerful magnetic field. This could also be done by suspending the exotic matter in long tubes from one star to another, a sort of interstellar highway for ships to warp through. The bubble would also have to not collapse around the ship and rip it apart, which would need even more energy to brace against. This energy is theorized to be so intense that the entire universe stuffed into the engine still wouldn't have enough power. But some models involving the bubble would need only a few pounds of exotic matter to function, as the opening you would need to travel into and keep open would be small. The harshness of traveling against the universe could also be softened by oscillating the frequency of the exotic matter encompassing the ship, another example of Star Trek possibly influencing the future. Another roadblock to the stars would also be the survivability of the crew inside this highly energetic bubble, as it may produce radiation that would bounce around the inside of the bubble and thoroughly cook any life within. On the same note, all the highly energetic radiation and charged particles around the ship may continue to fly forwards after the ship has stopped, destroying anything you were pointed towards, such as a space station or an entire planet. This ship may also create time travel and all the terrible paradoxes entailed, as it could arrive at a planet they have just left before they had even left it. This would be done by creating a separate timeline within their bubble, as that bubble would technically be a miniature pocket universe sliding along the main one, and would be in effect a separate closed time-like curve. But how would we also create the depression in spacetime? The only things we know of that do this are massive cosmic bodies such as planets, stars, galaxies, and clusters, all of which would be a tad cumbersome to maneuver. This is still an issue that needs to be resolved, and we may have a clue as to where we should look. Many of the theories of physics have a difficulty fitting gravity into their explanations of how the universe works, as it's one of the weakest of the fundamental forces, and is present in everything that travels sublight speed. The graviton is the theoretical subatomic particle that gives all sublight particles mass and gravitational attraction. It is one of the things that particle accelerators are searching for, as their goal is to break apart atoms into their most basic building blocks, one of which could be this graviton. But this may have already happened with the discovery of the Higgs boson particle. It's a particle that was discovered blasting off of a high-speed collision inside of CERN's Large Hadron Collider in 2012. Peter Higgs wanted to find the elusive mass-giving particle, and when this Higgs boson was measured, it fit many of his predictions for such a particle. If the Higgs boson is indeed the source of gravity and mass, we may be able to someday use it to create depressions in spacetime, without the need for all the useless matter planets and stars are made of. It could even lead to artificial gravity technology, with concentrations of the particles set into plates in the floor of starships that would attract you to them the same way Earth pulls on you right now. So, if we can harness these two forces of gravitons and exotic matter as well as solve the energy requirements to keep them in their places, warp travel could become as common as air or land travel, and you would be able to be in the Alpha Centauri system for a lunch meeting you wish could have been an entangled email, and be back in New York by dinner. Gravitons, exotic matter, and space-time warping are pretty complicated subjects, and this video is certainly not meant to be an in-depth look at any of them. I highly recommend looking these subjects up online, as there is an extensive amount of research and data we have on these studies.